Profit is brought to you by StopToShop.com, and they've got some of the best prices on the internet for the new emerging power set. Now's the perfect time to stock up on playable cards like Gothitelle, Pokemon Catcher, Tornadus, or even the new Pokemon Trading Card Game Online code cards. Click on the link in the description to check out the set. When you do, you'll get a 10% discount on your full order at checkout. When you're looking for cards, make the stop. It's Stop to Shop.
Hey everybody, it's JWittz here from the Pokemon Trading Card Game Show Profit, and it's been a while, but I've actually got something a little bit exciting, and that is a live tournament game recorded. Normally I'm just doing practice games, it's been a while, but this is the finals between Lucas and William, two local players at the Urbana Free Library Battle Road event. Lucas is playing Reshiram Emboar with Rayquaza Deoxys Legend, and he runs Ninetales for draw instead of Magnezone for draw and an attacker. William's playing the Stage 1 deck. He's running Zoroark, Donphan Prime, and Yanmega Prime. Definitely an interesting matchup. I haven't talked about either of these decks so far in one of my newest videos, so it's just awesome and appropriate that they both play decks that we haven't seen before. So Lucas's goal is to set up with Ninetales, use Roast Reveal to draw cards, get Emboar out, and use his ability to attach as many fire energy as he likes from his hand to both Rayquaza Deoxys Legend and Reshiram from Black and White, deal a lot of damage, and just sweep his opponent from there. His deck's a little bit slower, so definitely needs a little bit more time to set up, get all these evolutions out. William's deck, on the other hand, aims on getting these fast evolutions out, doing fast attacks that aren't so powerful to take as many cheap prizes as he can. So it's an interesting matchup. If William's able to stop Lucas from setting up, he can absolutely demolish him. He's got a fast deck, he can dismantle him really quickly, but if time keeps on going later and later and Lucas is finally able to get his things out, then William's in trouble. He's got a lot of high HP Pokemon that can knock out William's medium HP Pokemon, and things go downhill for him after that. Now, one thing I was really afraid about when I was doing these matches is it looked like the camera was shaking all the time. It's really not shaking that badly, so I was really happy with the quality that ended with, but one huge problem that we're already seeing here is glare. I didn't expect that, but I really should have, considering that they were sitting right next to a window, and it was unfortunate. Everybody was in a hurry. The library was kicking everyone out. The event ran a little bit late, and so we had to leave from the main room that we normally were playing at, but no big worries. The glare's not terrible, and if you can't tell what a card does, I'll let you know what's happening. Right now, that glared card is a Pokemon Collector that William just played to get a Zorua, Yanma, and a Phanpy. Just trying to get as many basic Pokemon as he can, getting ready to set up next turn. Plays a Pokemon Communication. Puts Zora back in. And decides to combine steps, play two Pokemon Communication at once, so he can put two Pokemon back in and get two Pokemon from his deck. Goes for a Donphan, and goes for a Zoroark. Now, one interesting thing is the last round of Swiss, Lucas and William played and Lucas won. So they're paired up again, and William probably learned a little bit from his last match, probably knows the importance of Zoroark in this matchup, and it's definitely a big option that Stage 1s can have if they do decide to use it. Zoroark, for a double colorless energy, basically mirrors your opponent's active Pokemon's attack. Now, normally this can be good, this can be bad, it depends on the type of deck, but in Lucas's scenario, his Pokemon dealing such high damage, it's really good. Normally, his Pokemon can only deal about 60-70 damage at a time, but when Lucas gets his main attackers out, he can mirror things like Blue Flare to deal 120, or Rayquaza Deoxys Legends Ozone Buster to deal 150 on one energy. Definitely bad for Lucas. So Lucas starts off pretty fast. He gets a Ninetales already, does Roast Reveal to draw 3 cards, Charen to draw another 3. He's got a huge hand, but looking at his hand, it looks like he doesn't have too many options. The Twins is good if William takes a knockout, but it also means that he has to give up his Tepig in the process. And looking at his other supporters, he's only got the Fisherman, so he can get energy back, and nothing else to really work with. Now, he can always discard those fires again later to draw more cards, but just looking at both players' hands, which is one great thing about the angle that I ended up getting. I've never had a clear view of both players' hands before. William's got Judge, which means that both players will shuffle their hands into their decks and draw 4 cards. So that's going to cut down Lucas's hand size a lot. It might help him because his hand isn't great, but it might hurt him because he's got fire in his hand to dispose for Ninetales. He decides to play Pokemon Catcher to bring up the Zorua. Now, normally, letting Zoroark out is not good against this deck, but early on, Lucas doesn't have any of his big attackers out, so if you let Zoroark mirror your attacks, all he can mirror really is like Singe, which could burn with Tepig, or you can deal 60 damage with Ninetales as attack. So no knockouts really can be taken with Zoroark on William's turn. He thinks about attaching Fighting to Zoroark. He's like, gonna play this Judge. Could I get a double to attach? But attaching a double, again, not really a big deal. No real great attacks to mirror, and it would just be a waste if he ended up having to retreat him later. So he attaches the fire now, so at least he knows he can retreat that Zoroark. And both players offer their decks to cut and draw 4 new cards. So we can see off Lucas's 4, he's got 2 Embors, a Rayquaza Deoxys Legend piece, and a Fire. So not really that great, but he could still Roast Reveal off of that. William passes right away. He's got supporters to work with already. So he draws his 3, still no real supporter to draw or work with, so he evolves Tepig to Pignite. He can at least get Embor on his next turn, but that's about all he's got. Attempts to burn again with Singe and gets Tails. William draws, and he's got the double, he's got Fighting. He's got outs to prizes on his turn now, and things are looking good for William. Attaches to Donphan Prime, and retreats to Donphan Prime. And right away, Earthquake does 60 damage for 1 energy, and you deal 10 damage to all your own bench Pokemon, which is a really great, cost-efficient attack. And it definitely sets him up for a knockout on Tepig right away. He's also got Pokemon Catcher, which is a huge staple in this format and in this deck now. Lets you pull up your opponent's bench Pokemon, basically to knock out whoever you like with these quick attacks. So he can knock out Vulpix, he can knock out Tepig. Right now, playing Pokemon Communication to get his 3rd evolution. Now he's got all 3 of his main attackers out in play. Lucas still doesn't have any, and so he can either knock out Vulpix, but not really that great of a play. Lucas already has a Ninetales out, or he can knock out Tepig, which could be good. He knows that Lucas runs both the Embor that lets him attach energy and the Embor that allows him to attack, so cutting off access to one of those shuts him off from an attacker. He does Earthquake, 10 on his own bench, and Lucas is knocked out. William takes the first prize. So Lucas does have another Ninetales, but doesn't really have much else to work with, so he plays Fisherman to get some energy back, basically just as fodder for him to discard with these Ninetales for Roast Reveal. Gets his second Ninetales, and gets ready to dump energy. Dumps 1, draws 3. Ugh, 3 fires. Dumps again, draws 3. Rare Candy, Energy Retrieval, and an Energy, so not that good. So he's got this huge hand. The one good thing in his hand right now is the Junk Arm and a lot of energy. Now Junk Arm could get him a Pokemon Communication, and then that allows him to get either a Reshiram to attack with, or the other half of Rayquaza Deoxys Legend to attack with. Now this is a pretty tough choice. If he gets Rayquaza Deoxys Legend, he can knock out the Donphan and take 2 prizes with Ozone Buster right off the bat. Now the only problem with that is if William has access to double colorless energy, he can knock out Rayquaza Deoxys Legend back with his own Ozone Buster for 150 damage, 1 energy, and William gets to take 2 prizes too. Reshiram, on the other hand, does not take a prize on Donphan, but it will likely not be knocked out unless William retreats and plays a plus power and has the double. So Reshiram's the safer play here. Rayquaza Deoxys Legend a bit more of a risk, but it would also put Lucas in the lead, so he's definitely debating. He knows he wants to play this Junk Arm and start attacking this turn. He's just thinking about which Pokemon to attack with. Discards a Lightning and a Rare Candy. Checks his discard, brings back Pokemon Communication. puts that other Emboar back in, and searches his deck to get an attacker out this turn. He decides to settle for the Reshiram. And definitely the safer choice. So he discards, and now that he has Emboar out, he can attach as many fire energy as he likes from his hand. Not as many lightning as he likes, just as many fire, so he attaches the lightning, not as part of the ability, but all fires are part of Emboar's ability. Retreats the Ninetales, brings up Reshiram, and he does Blue Flare. Forces you to discard 2 fire, and it deals 120 damage. Now that's reduced by 20 because of Donphan's exoskeleton Pokebody, but still a decent amount of damage, and definitely puts William in a weird spot. William likely isn't taking a prize on his turn. He can only deal 60 damage with Donphan, 70 with Yanmega, and a varying amount depending on if he hits a switch and can retreat to Zoroark, so looks at his hand and he's thinking. He's got that catcher, so you can pull up anything off Lucas's bench. You can pull up Ninetales and hit it, and then maybe hit it again later. Or you can pull up Emboar, who has a heavy retreat cost, and maybe could leave Lucas stuck. So he's definitely thinking about those options. He knows that Lucas probably runs a couple copies of Switch, knowing that catcher is big in this format, but he still has a small hand, hasn't really hit much yet. So he's thinking. Plays catcher, and I do think that he does take up that Emboar. Now this is definitely the best play. None of his other Pokemon were really in range to be knocked out right away. If he attacks Reshiram, then he gives Reshiram more damage to deal with his Outrage attack, and just leaving the fat Emboar up right now puts Lucas in a weird spot. William can probably knock out Emboar after 2 or 3 attacks, and if Emboar falls, then Lucas has no way to attach as many energy as he likes, and he's in a really, really bad spot. So definitely just applying more pressure, showing how strong of a card catcher can be, even if you aren't taking a cheap prize right off the bat. He also does have the switch, so he could have switched and dealt 120 damage with Blue Flare with the Zoroark, but looks like he has no out to a plus power, and that would just deal 120 to Reshiram, leaving him alive and free to deal Outrage for 140 back. So William's got a lot of good options, but looking at his hand, he decides to switch here, and I think what his thought process is he can copy Emboar's attack and deal 80 damage here with Zoroark instead of just 60 with Donphan. So dealing 80 means that he can knock out Emboar on 2 attacks instead of the unsurety of hitting for 60 first with Donphan and then maybe being able to deal 80 again with Zoroark. So Lucas does a couple of draws with Roast Reveal, and he finally has some options, Twins being a huge part of this deck. Twins lets you search for 2 cards out of your deck, but you can only play when you're down in prizes. Lucas, down in prizes, probably going to play Twins to get access to one of his switches, if they're in the deck. So he plays Twins, and to the deck we go. We see Switch right on the top, a nice base set copy. So he's definitely getting one of those to move Emboar out of the way. But the damage has been done. William did the 80 damage first to Zoroark, meaning that if he ever does pull up Emboar again, then it'll be knocked out by Donphan's Earthquake. Does play Energy Retrieval, gets a lot of energy in play, retreats, and now things are looking a little bit better. He also still has Tepig on the bench, which means that if his Emboar does get knocked out, he could probably work his way back into the deck to get another Emboar out. Takes a prize with Blue Flare, and we're at a tie game, 5-5. William also loses that option of Zora and Zoroark, which could leave an opening for Lucas to use Rayquaza Deoxys Legend. William decides to play the catcher right away, pull up that Emboar, and take that guaranteed prize that he set up last turn. Decides to play Copycat, which shuffles your hand back into your deck, and you draw as many cards as your opponent has in their hand. Lucas has been doing a little bit of drawing, so it's actually a pretty strong supporter to have against this deck. So, offers his deck to cut, no cut, pretty friendly game, they play all the time at League, and he draws all his cards. Now amongst those cards, he's got another fan piece, so you can get another Don fan later, and he also has the Don fan. Not too much else, so he retreats, and likely gonna Earthquake for the knockout. Oh, he needs to play a plus power to get a knockout. That's something that I didn't think about. I forgot Embor has so much HP. He's 150, which is